Welcome into the garage area. This is our COTA recap show. I'm not very excited after this one.
Yeah.
This was pretty boring overall, in my opinion. Nothing really jumped out at me at all. I mean, we didn't even have a yellow flag for incident. We had two cautions today, both for the end of the stage. William Byron pretty much walked away with it, led 42 laps, which was way more than anybody else. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. It's just he sat on the pole, led the most laps, and won. Nothing exciting happened. Lap 1, there was an incident where Corey LaJoie got turned into the 19 and the 23. But outside of that, I mean, some guys went around, but nobody else was really involved. A lot of single-car spins. Did we have more than one penalty through the S's?
I think we had a few because I think Suarez did. I know Chase did. John Hunter Nemechek did.
Okay. Very insignificant drivers. Gotcha.
Yeah.
No. Suarez would be somebody that I thought would have been a player today. Chase Elliott as well. Your pick to win. I thought would have been a little more involved than he was. John Hunter Nemechek, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in being a factor. But, yeah, so I guess we'll go ahead and talk about it here. Like I said, no cautions for incident. The race itself, I thought, was very boring. The most exciting part of anything was Christopher Bell with the freshest tires trying to come through the field.
Yeah.
And he did get close to William Byron there at the end of the race, but not anywhere close enough to actually make a move to pass him. A couple more laps, he might have had that opportunity. He was the fastest car on the racetrack, but William Byron pretty much had it wrapped up from start to finish, and it was only because of the few extra laps that he had on his tires that Bell was able to run him down as quickly, I'd say. It looked like throughout the course of the day that the 24 had him covered. Like we said, Byron won, Bell finished second, Ty Gibbs third, Alex Bowman fourth. Somehow backed his way into that finish for being a hack. And Tyler Reddick ended up finishing fifth. That was my pick this week, and he ended up getting me the win with a fifth place finish. We broke our streak here on the garage area of picking the winner the last 3 weeks. Didn't make it happen this week, and I never would have thought that William Byron was the guy that was going to dominate today the way that he did. Did you see him coming into this weekend being as strong as he was?
When we first talked about picks, he didn't come to mind, but he has run strong on road courses. I mean, he won Watkins Glen last year, so I don't know. I think he's won another one. So I'm not recalling right now, but he has run up front at a lot of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, after I saw he won the pole, I mean, obviously, I think he won the pole there last year too. They said
he might have. I don't recall that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think that anything was really pointing to Byron being the guy that was going to come into this weekend and dominate. But like you said, once he won the pole, it was like, he's probably going to be pretty fast. And I still didn't think he'd win. I didn't think he'd dominate the race the way he did.
Well, it looked like the toy. He had his speed was on the front end of a run.
Yeah.
It looked like Gibbs and Bell were catching him there at the end of the first stage before they all started pitting and whatnot. But they thought maybe the Toyotas would end up having the longevity on the long run. But he seemed to hold them off. So
yeah, that just, like we said, if he had a couple more laps, I think Bell was going to get him. But I think if you had a caution come out and everybody came down pit road, as long as Byron made it through that treacherous turn 1, he probably was going to walk away with a win if they came down and got new tires anyway. So, I don't know. I felt like I don't know how to feel about this one because I don't want to see guys wrecking for stupid reasons and see a bunch of cautions.
Yeah.
Especially at this racetrack. Cautions take forever. This is such a... You're just watching the lap counter and being like, I got 24 laps to go. We probably got about another 2 hours worth of racing. The laps here are so long. And I don't know. It's just... Road course racing in the first place isn't something that really appeals to me and never really has. And at least in the Cup Series... I understand that there's people that are really talented that can do it well.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we need to take it out of this sport by any means. I think it's a historical part of the sport by every account, but it's not races that I get excited for. And this certainly met my expectations of not being exciting.
Yeah, I think, I enjoy more strategy of how things play out at road courses. But I also like watching cars hit the curbs and hit tight corners and stuff like that. I think these long track road courses are like a Road America.
Yeah,
that before. I believe it was like a 4-mile track, and I just feel like those tracks where they get so spread out is what can draw some boringness to it.
Oh yeah.
Watkins Glen is a fast course, and it's like a 2.5-mile course, and there's always cars close together.
Yeah.
So, just having 3 to 4 miles of racing, just everything stretches out.
Yeah.
I still enjoyed the race. I don't think it's quite as boring as you may believe, but
tell me what you enjoyed about it. Tell me why this was so exciting.
I'm not going to say it's exciting, but just watching how strategy plays out, who takes stage points versus pitting before the stages, and
why is that exciting? Nobody's running near the front, and everybody that's trying to win the race is going to pit, and people that are trying to just get stage points go, you know what? I'm just going to stay out here and put myself at a disadvantage.
I see what you're saying. I don't know. When you look at the long run of the point standings and seeing what the teams that are trying to gain points and stuff, whatnot, it gives them that opportunity.
It's like, guys, when we had green flag pit cycles and you used to pay bonus points for leading a lap. When they would stay out and lead a lap under a green flag pit cycle, they got a bonus point, and they didn't really deserve one. They just stayed out there because that's what they were trying to get. This is the same idea.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess
I don't know. This is just if you did what we have done in the past, where you stayed green under the stage breaks and just paid the points at the lap that the stage points would have been awarded, this race would have been worse for sure. And you wouldn't have had that strategy, but you would also eliminate guys, I'll say, stealing stage points, because it didn't amount to anything, the points that they earned. We had Christopher Bell won stage 1, which he was the only one that I thought really made that strategy work, because he stayed out, he got his stage win, he got his points, he went back and pitted and got behind everybody and drove his way back up to, I think it was 6th or 7th before the next stage break. Yeah. And then he was back on the same page as everybody else. So he played that well, and then stayed out long on that final green flag run in order to be the first car on fresh tires when they ended up going back racing, and he made up a lot of time.
Yeah,
it was,
most definitely.
Was it 12 laps to go when they said he had a 10-second gap to the leader?
I think it was 11.
11 laps, yeah. And he had a 10-second gap to the leader, and he was in 4th. Is that correct? Yeah. And he made his way all the way back to 2nd, and really, honestly, within a lap of being, probably within a couple corners of being to William Byron.
I don't know how much William Byron was just minding his gap to.
Yeah, I agree. He probably was sandbagging a little bit to just make sure that he was running faster than the second place car.
Yeah.
But at the same point, I mean, it was going away in a hurry too. So it makes me think that Bell probably could have got him if he had time to as well. But yeah, he won stage 1. Denny Hamlin won stage 2, and I don't even know where he finished. It was like way in the back. I don't know about way in the back, but he was further down the list. He was 14th. Okay, that was when I looked. He was running 17th, so he did end up gaining a few spots there toward the end. Martin Truex Jr. was another guy that we talked about. Made contact with Corey LaJoie to start the race, and
he got sandwiched between.
It looked like LaJoie came back on the racetrack, hit the 19, and then turned Bubba into both of them, and they kind of all three crashed together.
He was sandwiched between Bubba and LaJoie.
Yeah,
Truex was, and I feel like LaJoie was coming back onto the track because or else he'd have been in the grass.
Yeah,
and they just kind of converged at one point.
Yeah, I don't know what all was going on for the source of that contact there, but definitely LaJoie had something going on and took out a couple cars, obviously not intentionally. And Truex came back to finish 10th, which was good for him. And Bubba Wallace, he actually got spun out once after that, and he still battled back to a 15th place finish. So all I remember is I don't know if it was last year or the year before, must have been last year, when Bubba caused a wreck. He dove it too deep into a braking zone and wrecked himself in another car and just ruined their day, and said that 6 years in the Cup he needs to be replaced.
Yeah,
that sticks out to me as being a quote from him, and he significantly improved over that performance.
I think this is. I feel like he's wrecked out of every other COTA racer was.
He has. They said that on the broadcast.
Well, I know one of the COTA races he lost a wheel too, so I feel like it's just been a bad omen for him, I guess.
Yeah, this is not his racetrack, and I don't know how I feel about this racetrack as a whole. It's too big, for one thing. I don't like the length of the track. Turn 1 is a disaster. We didn't have more than 3 starts, or you started the race and 2 restarts to have any real calamity through that turn, but it could have turned into something awful had you had many cautions. You saw that in the Xfinity Series race, which we'll talk about, but I don't like this turn. It's the most treacherous turn in NASCAR, and for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
I think what they need to do to fix this is put concrete barriers all the way down that front stretch and just narrow them right down into a little funnel. So you pretty much have to let the guy in front of you go, or you just absolutely destroy your race car. Yeah. That's obviously a ridiculous thing that I'm proposing there, but
the only thing I can see to fix it is make it like more of a turn similar to like turn 11 in Sonoma or like a Martinsville corner. Just make it more rounded instead of that point.
Well, they're not going to adjust the racetrack because this series does not matter to them at COTA, and I don't blame them. This is a Formula One built racetrack, and stock cars shouldn't be on it.
Yeah.
And I don't even know that I'd say that entirely, that stock cars shouldn't be on it, but turn 1 is not conducive to what they've got going on there with a big straightaway coming down into a really tight turn like that. You saw guys lock up tires getting in there. You saw Ty Gibbs do it after he just came off pit road.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of good things to say about this racetrack as in general. I don't look forward to coming here. I don't look forward to road courses in general, but I look forward to Watkins Glen way more than I do this.
Yeah.
And I think that moving the restart zone like they did in order to kind of eliminate so many cars coming up to speed at the same time and people having to make that final corner before they get onto the front stretch was helpful.
Yeah.
But we really didn't get to see its full performance either, or how much difference it made, because we didn't have any restarts that amounted to anything either. That's pretty much all I've got on this race. It didn't amount to a whole lot in my opinion. I thought that Chase Elliott's penalty was stupid for cutting the course. He was clearly out of control, and he tried to save it. Was still pretty close to being on the racetrack. He was certainly below where track limits are, but being outside of there and getting a penalty like that was just dumb in my opinion. I think that obviously if he was trying to pass a car, or if he was trying to make some sort of a move and had all 4 tires below those rumble strips or whatever, then I understand the penalty, but he just was bouncing, looked like he wheel hopped real bad and lost the back end of the car and went sliding through that.
I mean, it's the rule's a rule. I mean,
but that's the only place on the racetrack where track limits matter, which is also stupid.
The whole track limit as a whole, I hate.
Yeah.
But
I think that if you're going to make track limits, then you need to make physical ones.
Yeah.
I want to see concrete barriers, or like a guardrail like they have at Watkins Glen, something that would probably take some abuse if you ended up hitting it, and it wouldn't necessarily destroy your car. Yeah. But it would be. Harvick and those guys kept talking on the broadcast. Well, these guys they're following cars and they're losing their mark, and they end up being all 4 tires below those rumble strips.
Yeah.
Well, if you had a barrier there, you'd be able to see that the whole time and stay off of it. So I think that's if you're going to enforce that rule, you've got to have something physical there in order to do. And I don't think cones would do the job. Like, you need something solid that you're going to not wreck your car against.
Didn't they have turtles there one time, the first race?
They might have, but turtles are a bad thing for these cars too.
I mean, I don't think that track's going to ever put any type of that barriers, because I don't think they want that for F1 either. So,
well, you can move concrete barriers with a fork truck or a crane or whatever, and I don't know.
I don't know if those type of barriers or something, or for safety wise, would work for them or not.
They might not, but if you put them there and put tires up against it or something like that, you can. I mean, I can't imagine where NASCAR would find a stack of used tires to put in front of there. But my point being that this penalty all weekend long I thought was stupid. You saw a ton of penalties in the Xfinity Series race for it as well. It's dumb. I'll leave it at that. The couple other guys that I thought that I think we need to talk about. AJ Allmendinger in that 13 car ran pretty well, finished 6th. He was never really a factor for the lead or for the win, but he was somebody that ran up front. And for Colleague's lack of performance and the few cup starts that Allmendinger gets, I thought that was a very respectable run. I actually thought that was probably excellent for that team, especially where they're running right now. 6th place finish for them. I said in the preview video that I did that I thought Kyle Larson would be somebody to pay attention to. He finished 18th. He also did get spun out by Christopher Bell. I don't know how... I wasn't paying any attention to Kyle Larson once he wasn't up front.
Yeah.
So I don't know how his day worked out that he ended up being stuck that far back, if he just could never make up any positions, if he never had any good track position, or what the deal was.
I feel like he got spun out twice.
Oh, did he get spun out
I
twice?
believe so. I don't remember who did it the second time.
There's a couple of times we saw spinning cars on the racetrack in the shots while they're showing the leaders. They never showed us who spun out.
Yeah.
Just like Noah Gragson there at the end. If Harvick hadn't said, I'm pretty sure that's the 10 car,
Yeah.
I would have never known who spun out.
That was... Yeah, I remember seeing... I didn't see who it was. I just saw Byron flash by and there was a car there, and that was all I seen of it.
Yeah. Shane Van Gisbergen, I thought he'd be a little more of a factor. Finished 21st.
Yeah.
Didn't see anything of him today to speak of.
Yeah,
and
he was at the top 10 a couple points, just barely.
Yeah, he was.
He was kind of just a step behind AJ.
Yeah.
Until he had to... He had a penalty too, so that put him in the back. Plus, he lost first gear at the end.
Yeah, he did lose first gear. I'm sure that didn't help him. I don't know how much of the racetrack they're in first gear, but it's gotta help in some of those slow corners. But yeah, he didn't end up being anything that was a force to reckon with by any means. Daniel Suarez was the other car that you thought might be fast today. I thought would be fast today. He also got penalized, like you said, for cutting the S's, I do believe. And he ended up finishing 32nd. He was not even close to being in the front.
Yeah.
And he may have also got spun out, too, at one point. I can't remember for sure.
I feel like with Suarez, I'm pretty sure he had a cut in the course penalty.
Okay.
But I still would have thought... That was in the early stages of the race. I still would have thought he'd have had a better run than that.
It was hard, except for the people that were really on it today, to make up any kind of mistake that you had because there was no yellow flags.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of what we dealt with today. You can tell, I'm sure, watching this, that I've really come off the high of the last week here at Bristol down to this. And, we've kind of gone up and down. Phoenix was a bummer, but the other races this year have been really good. And this is another one there, too, where it was a bummer. I don't know if I'd rank this below Phoenix or not, because you should have a better race at Phoenix, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like this was some atrocity of a race by any means. It just wasn't exciting to watch, in my opinion. And just can't believe I devoted that much time on a Sunday afternoon to watch that particular race. I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about the Cup race. I guess we could talk about Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell. After the race, Kyle went up to Bell, and you saw him kind of, I wouldn't say he was screaming at him, but he was very intently in his face. He held up two fingers as though to say that was twice. And I couldn't hear the entire words that Kyle said, but at the very end, I heard him ask Bell, he said, "Have I ever wrecked you?" And Bell just kind of looked down and he said, "No." He goes, "Well, you got one coming." So... After watching the replay, though, it's hard to be on Kyle's side with that because Kyle took a wide entrance into turn one, and Bell was already there.
Yeah.
And Kyle went to just swing down to the bottom of the racetrack and kind of feather his line back out, and Bell was there, and Kyle got turned around. I understand he's mad about it, and Kyle's had a very frustrating year overall.
Yeah.
And so I totally understand why he's upset, but I just don't really think you can really hang that on Bell. And to be that mad that far after that event took place, I don't know that that was really totally justified. I don't know where Kyle finished. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Looking. Kyle Busch. Oh, he finished 9th. So he didn't even have that bad a finish overall.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he felt like he was going to be a bigger factor than that or not, but I don't know.
And he started 16th, so I mean, I remember him talking. He really came to the front pretty quickly there at the beginning. So maybe he
you
thought
could
he
be
could have
right.
ran a top 5 even.
I saw Joey Logano's post, his social media post after the race. He started 35th because he had a lap disallowed due to cutting the course in qualifying. Yeah. He ended up finishing 11th. He was never a factor in the top 10, but as he said in his post after the race, to end up with an 11th place finish after starting 35th and not having any yellows to help you out through the day, you could tell you had a pretty fast race car.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm encouraged by that or not because he's had a pretty rough couple of weeks. And when we get back to real racetracks like we're going to see at Richmond next week, that's going to be a better gauge for their performance, I think, personally. Let's talk about the point standings a little bit. Last week, we had Kyle Larson being the point leader, tied with Martin Truex Jr., followed by Ty Gibbs, Ryan Blaney, and Denny Hamlin. And this week, we got Truex with sole possession of the point lead, followed by Ty Gibbs, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, and then Kyle Larson has fallen all the way to 5th with his poor finish today.
With the 15 points of the top 5, so it's a pretty tight battle for the points lead.
You got 15? I got 16 here.
Yeah, so I got 15 on NASCAR's.
Okay. Racing Reference has it at 16-point gap there, so I'm not sure which of those is correct. But either way, very close. That's certainly manageable. And then it takes a big jump from there. There's a 37-point gap to William Byron and Christopher Bell, who are tied for 6th. So, yeah, I don't know that I really have anything else to talk about in the Cup race. Do you?
No.
All right, we'll move on to the Xfinity race. And that one saw Kyle Larson do something that's never been done in NASCAR history before. And that was qualify on the pole, lead one lap, and win the race. Never happened in any of the NASCAR's top 3 series before. And that is pretty impressive. Austin Hill, the bulldozer, finished 2nd. He led a lap. Parker Kligerman led 4. A.J. Allmendinger led most of them with 20. He ended up finishing 10th. Shane Van Gisbergen, actually, they both tied for most points, or most laps led that day. He ended up finishing 27th after he had a final lap penalty assessed against him. He also led 20 laps. And Riley Herbst led a couple as well. He ended up crashing out at the end. Points coming into this week, you had Chandler Smith 1st, Austin Hill 2nd, Cole Custer 3rd, Riley Herbst 4th, and Jesse Love in 5th. And after this race, you have Austin Hill, Chandler Smith, Cole Custer, Jesse Love, and Riley Herbst. That wreck really hurt him. A.J. Allmendinger did end up being in 6th after this week as well in points. There were more incidents in that race. There was only 2 cautions for incident. There was more cars turned around often in the Xfinity Series. I have actually quite a few notes for that particular race. As we said, Larson qualifying on the pole. I really thought that he'd be somebody that led a lot of laps because I figured that car would be really fast. And it was all colleague all day. It was the 97 and the 16 that just stayed out front all race. And Kligerman ended up winning stage 1. Brandon Jones ended up winning stage 2, and that's because of the similar strategy that we saw in the Cup race. Guys that are trying to win the race, pitting before stage end. Guys that are trying to score stage points end up staying out. And in fact, Brandon Jones, we thought won stage 2, and he got assessed a penalty for cutting the S's on the final lap, and that ended up giving the stage win to Riley Herbst, which he obviously really needed because he ended up wrecking at the end. This race wasn't much better than the Cup race. It just had more drama at the end, in my opinion. The only thing that was more entertaining is that you felt like SVG and A.J. Allmendinger both had pretty good shots to win the race. And it was kind of going to be a battle between the two of them, where today you just felt like it was Byron, unless Bell could miraculously catch him at the end. There was really no action in the first 2 stages at all. And after the final pit stop, you just saw Shane start to pull away from A.J., and AJ was getting pretty animated on the radio, not appreciating the adjustments that they made in that car at the end there.
And what did he say? What did you do to it? And they let 0.5 of air out. You killed it.
Yeah, exactly. And Joey Logano said on the broadcast that he's pretty confident that that's just something that they tell drivers, and that he does not believe that 1/10 of air pressure makes that much of a difference. So, I'm sure that AJ's car wasn't killed by any means. He was still pretty fast. He just couldn't catch SVG. And then we had a caution for incident there at the end. Fluid on the racetrack from the 24 car. I don't remember who it was. Ended up spun around, and you could see the fluid leaking out from underneath the car. They had a yellow. They had to stack them all up again and go through the worst turn in NASCAR, turn 1 at COTA. And they all made it through that time.
Yeah.
And SVG maintained the lead. And he was going to continue his drive out to win this particular race when we had another yellow, this time for a big wreck. That was the one Riley Herbst was involved in. I'm not sure who else was all collected in that. Yeah. But after we got that one all straightened out and stacked them up again for the restart, we go into turn one. And as I said, the bulldozer with the snowplow on the front went ahead and moved SVG out of the way. And look, Austin Hill is getting on my nerves as a driver. He's getting to be somebody that I don't like. Not as bad as Ty Gibbs. I really can't stand Ty Gibbs. But he has become just this... He's become a whiny bully. Like, if you're going to bully people and you don't care if you get bullied back, I can deal with that.
Yeah.
But when you're going to bully people and then complain when people run over you, that I've had enough of you at that point. And I think it was the 8 car to start the day, or was it the 1? It was one of the JRM cars. It was like one of the first few laps of the race. He shoved them out of the way immediately. Actually, it might have been Chandler Smith.
The 81 spun around.
Okay.
Yeah, Chandler Smith spun.
Either way, it was the 21 that I think he shoved the 8 into him was the deal.
Could be. Yeah. And I think I remember that now. Yeah. Talk about it.
He was definitely bullying some guys around, just using his car as a bulldozer, as I said. I wonder if he can get a Caterpillar sponsorship or JCB or Komatsu or something like that.
RCR used to have Caterpillar.
Yeah, they did with Ryan Newman. Yeah. But yeah, that does definitely seems to fit him. And then he whined about, after he shoved Van Gisbergen out of the way, SVG was trying to run him down and was running him down.
Yeah.
And Larson, man, we'll talk about him in a second, was just flying on them new tires. And when they came to the final corner, Shane was determined that he was going to run into him.
Yeah.
Which I 100% get. I don't know if the 21 brake checked him that hard because he caved in the nose of that 97.
Yeah.
And I just can't see, without any kind of SMT data, I cannot see Shane just shoving it in there that far, hoping for the best.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like he deliberately meant to hit him with a certain rate of force, and I don't know if the 21 just stood on the brakes to get keep from getting spun out, or what the deal was.
I don't know.
But they both shoved each other out of the groove and off the racetrack into the runoff area, and the 17 just drove by them both and won the race. And Shane did end up getting him at the line. And then Hill was complaining afterwards, well, he didn't even give me a chance to make the corner. Well, he didn't give him a chance to make turn 1 either, so shut up. Yeah, he's RCR's little whiner at the moment, and I've had enough of him pretty easily. I didn't see it on the broadcast. Maybe they did show it, but I missed it, where Ty Gibbs, that fake Christian, tried to turn AJ Allmendinger under yellow. And
it was like early in the race.
No, it was that was the final caution, I believe.
Was it?
You had an incident there, and this is another stupid cutting the course penalty. You had Parker Kligerman get shoved all out of shape. And I don't know if it was AJ's fault or what, but you saw Kligerman get sideways, and he cut the racetrack. I mean, he went flying through that S.
Yeah.
It did not make the curve at all. And I don't know if he improved his position or not, but he didn't lose anything.
I think he came out in the same position.
But he should have, if he were going to make that corner, lost a couple spots. And he ended up going straight through and stayed in the same spot. And AJ was kind of stacking cars up behind him. And I'm assuming Ty Gibbs was involved in cars behind him where he got stacked up or got knocked into or something. Because under yellow after that, the 19 tried to wreck the 16. Didn't sound like it worked out. And the 16 got a penalty for cutting the course anyways.
Yeah.
So I guess my issue with this is Kligerman was out of control. And that's why he cut the S, and he did not get penalized for that.
Well, I think at that particular S, he got turned into the out-of-bounds area.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, he was off the racetrack, failed to make the S, was outside of track limits. Yeah. And I understand he did not do that intentionally. He was forced into that position. Allmendinger also was getting booted around, and he ended up being out of control and failed to make that S as well.
When I see Allmendinger's, I thought, to me it looked like he was going straight within the limits. Then when he turned to make that S, he turned too far. That's what I saw.
He looked like he was sideways and trying to get it back.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like he was sideways from the corner before.
Yeah.
Whereas Kligerman was hit at that corner instead of the previous corner.
Yeah.
I just feel like Allmendinger had plenty of time to correct it before he got to that spot.
I don't know that I'd say plenty of time. You come off one and you're right
Well,
on the other one.
yeah, but to me, it looked like he turned into the out of bounds, or he could have kept going straighter.
Yeah,
that's the way I saw it.
I don't know. You're rooting against your own driver here because this is going to be my defense of Chase Elliott and him not having to be penalized for the.
He made a mistake and cut the corner.
Yeah, but he made a mistake in the previous corner, which put him in a bad spot for that corner.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You got to have some physical track limit there to prevent that, in my opinion.
Well, that physical track limit, and then Chase is wrecked out. That's
true. But the penalty is the same either way. You either get a little bit of damage on your car and continue on because aerodynamics don't matter at a road course, or you end up having to go to the back and your race is killed anyways.
I think aerodynamics matter enough on this track, more than you think. But
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a stupid penalty in my opinion.
Much as I hate the penalty and stuff, everything I saw I thought looked correct.
Okay. Whatever, dude. I don't know. It's stupid, and I think NASCAR needs to fix it. And I don't care if you don't like your driver.
I like my driver. He just made a mistake. That's all.
Yeah, he made a mistake that shouldn't. The mistake that he made should not have been that big a penalty for what he got.
Okay, then we got to change the penalty.
Okay, then what are you going to do then?
I don't know.
You got to give away one position.
Either that or a stop and go or something like that. I think a stop and go was even better than the pass through.
You're probably right. A stop and go probably would solve some of that.
Yeah.
If in the next corner you have to stop completely and go again.
Find a specific spot on a racetrack that's out of the area. Once you get to that point, pull off, stop and go or something.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I would know.
Yeah, and I think that you got to make that stop and go penalty. Like, if I'm not mistaken, and I did not pay that close attention because I don't care about this racetrack. Once you come through those S's, don't you have one more corner and then you're in that long straightaway? Long backstretch to turn 11 or whatever it is? I can't remember for sure.
This track, I still don't have this track.
I don't have it memorized either. It's not like Watkins Glen where you've gone there for 100 years and you know every corner of the place. But regardless, I don't think that you can, if you were going to make that penalty, I don't think you can make them stop right before you go down that long straightaway is my only point.
Yeah.
Like, I think you need to make them stop in a corner where everybody's slow anyways.
Yeah. That's what I say. Find a designated spot on a track and make them stop.
Yeah, outside of that, I don't know what to do. I don't think that this penalty fits the crime there in either of those positions. It took AJ out of contention for a win completely.
Yeah.
Chase Elliott took him out of a good position, good
he
finishing
was top
position,
5 at that point when he did
got spun besides.
Yeah.
So that,
I wish they had showed another replay of what happened to him.
Yeah, all you saw was him around.
Yeah, so they didn't go back and look and see what happened or anything else, whether it's something he did or he got spun from someone else.
Yeah.
So
it is a good thing that the 97 didn't end up winning the race, though, because he got a last lap penalty, which would have just been a total disaster.
Yeah.
And maybe he wouldn't have got that penalty if he wasn't. Well, no, he was racing the 21 regardless. So the S's were way beyond where he wrecked the 21 at. So that was something that I'm glad that I had no problem with SVG winning the race. I think that would have been awesome for the sport.
I think he's probably one of the more popular drivers, definitely.
I agree. Now. I like him. I got no problem with him. Even after all of that contact, and he dominated that day and had issues at the end of the race like that, he was still smiling and, hey, that's how you race in this sport now.
Now, they kind of course, once Larson passed both of them, Larson drove away by quite a few car lengths. So when Larson was coming across the line, the camera cut to Larson crossing the line, and then back to SVG and Hill. Right before they cut to Larson, it almost looked like Hill tried to right hook SVG and failed.
Oh, yeah.
So there's some controversy whether he tried to right hook.
Oh, I'm sure he probably did.
Whatever side of the track it was on after that incident. So
yeah, that would make sense. He's a whiny little crybaby. We already established this. That sounds like a temper tantrum that Austin Hill would throw. So, I would totally believe that. The guy's an idiot. Like, he's a very talented race car driver, but he wants to be a bully and then wants people to feel bad for him. And I got no time for people like that. I don't care about you at all. I hope he has to spend another several years in the Xfinity series for racing like that. I don't even know where they'd open up. I don't even care. We don't need to talk about RCR's future at this point. It's a good thing that the 97 didn't win because that would have been a disaster for PR. And hey, he won, and hey, guess what? We're going to take the one away from him. Kyle Larson was. Do you know where he was running prior to pitting? Because it was not in the front.
Yeah. He was still in the top 10.
Yeah, he was not a factor for the win.
Yeah.
I guess what I needed to ask better was, do you know where he came out of the pits after he came down pit road?
Okay. I think he was just outside the top 15.
Okay. Second to last caution. When I looked up, he was running 17th.
That sounds about right.
So I don't know if that's where he came out, but when I looked up after that second to final restart, he was running 17th on those fresh tires.
Yeah.
And then he made up a ton of spots on the restart.
Yeah.
And the second restart, he came up to like 4th or something like that after the first turn. And then he just drove his way to the lead from there. So
it almost looked like the last lap and a half. I'm not sure exactly when he got to third, but it looked like he said in his interview he saw Hill shove SVG into turn 1 on that restart. So you just knew he was just stalking them too.
Yeah.
I feel like he could have caught him sooner than he did. He said he knew something was going to happen, knew that he took advantage. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see two guys race like that. I mean, I would have dumped Hill sooner if I was SVG. He was actually trying to be strategic with it and not give him a chance to get back to him.
Yeah.
Totally understand that. I mean, that would have been smart, but as soon as I got anywhere close to him, I would have hit him. And yeah, a smart move on SVG's part. Kind of a shame it didn't work out for him. Deserved to finish second. Or, however you wanted to drop that penalty that we just fixed for NASCAR. Hopefully they'll listen to the show and get that corrected, and we don't have to deal with any more of that nonsense. Anything else you want to talk about from the Xfinity race?
I think that's all I got.
Okay, let's move on to the truck race, which was probably the most boring one of the weekend, I'd say. Well, I don't know. It kind of rivaled the Cup Series race as far as boring goes. It just was a little shorter, which I think made it maybe even a little more entertaining.
Yeah.
But you saw Corey Heim end up winning the race. He led 31 laps, which was a pretty good chunk of them. There were way more cautions in this one. There were 6 of them altogether. Taylor Gray, he had a good starting position in third, and he ended up finishing second. Ty Majeski finished third. Connor Zilic, who started on the pole, finished fourth. We'll talk about him a little more in a minute. And Ross Chastain ended up in fifth. That Jack Hawksworth, that was his first start, and he ended up finishing sixth. He's worth shouting out because he actually played a factor in this race. He led for a little bit.
Yeah.
He led a lap, but he ran near the front.
Probably during pit stop sequences.
No, it actually was. I mean, it was on a restart that he took the lead, but he was running up front.
Okay, was it?
And he took the lead from Heim on a restart and ran up there for a little bit. And
I feel like I was watching March Madness during this too. So
I'm telling you what, this was COTA week was a great week to happen during March Madness because you did not have to pay attention to any of these races except for the Xfinity race toward the end. And I'm sure that's the majority of this episode was we spent talking about the Xfinity Series race, and we probably should have just easily done a March Madness bracket recap and had more people interested this week.
Yeah.
There were 6 total cautions, 2 of them obviously for stage breaks, 4 for incident, a couple of them were for debris. Nothing too exciting overall, really. Points coming into today, you had Tyler Ankrum, Corey Heim, Rajah Caruth, Ty Majeski, and Christian Eckes in the top 5. And after this one, you got Corey Heim, Ty Majeski, Tyler Ankrum falls to 3rd, Rajah Caruth, and Christian Eckes running out the top 5. So not a ton of changes other than Ankrum falling as far as he did. I actually don't know where he finished. I'm going to see if I can find that here real quick. He didn't really have... He wasn't even somebody that I knew was in the race today. He started 12th and finished 24th, so obviously not a very good day for him. I don't know if he got spun out or what, but they had a lot of single truck spins in that race as well. The only other thing really significant other than Corey Heim absolutely dominating, I thought that it was pretty interesting that Marco Andretti chose to show us all his rear end. I could have done without that. I did not need that content on my television. There should have been some sort of warning that you were going to see a big fat rear end on the racetrack. That was interesting because the shocks were still hooked to the thing.
Yeah.
And drive shaft was not. And there was nothing else holding that rear end housing in the truck. I haven't seen anything like that where an entire rear end housing with the axle and no drive shaft got ripped out of a car since Ryan Newman's flip at Daytona in 03. Yeah. That's the last thing.
I'm going to say you might see him come out if they're actually wrecking and stuff, but I've never seen one just flat out fall off of it.
Yeah, that was.
Obviously he got. I know he got hit and spun around a couple times.
Yeah.
So I assume something broke in that and stuff. They've been limping the truck around.
Yeah, it's like they put grade 5 bolts in that thing instead of grade 8s. But
yeah. Someone said there's supposedly supposed to be tethers that help hold that on too for something like
wasn't
that.
on that one.
So I think NASCAR took it back to
they
investigate it. So I'm just curious if that's what they're looking into and whatnot.
I would think so. That's got to be a safety concern regardless there. Yeah. Outside of that, Connor Zilisch, I guess we should talk about him a little bit. He's the guy that the first time I heard about him was his performance in the Rolex 24. He announced last week that he's going to run an Xfinity race with JRM.
He's going to run a few at least. First one's going to be at Watkins Glen, I believe.
Okay.
So I think he's still 17, so once he turns 18, then he'll start running some for junior.
He was running the 7 Spire truck today that Kyle Busch has run pretty near the front in his time so far. He ended up starting on the pole and just absolutely blew the first corner.
Yeah.
I mean, locked him up and went straight. And if he'd gone another foot, he'd have been in the gravel trap.
Yeah.
And he somehow
barely made it.
Yeah. Got her wheeled around there. Got spun out at least once, maybe twice throughout the course of the day.
Had to change some sway bar parts. And
I mean, definitely battled and ended up finishing 4th. That's pretty good performance by him. He comes across as a little bit of a whiner on the radio, as you can probably tell. I don't like that. But
I didn't happen to hear anything.
Yeah, he didn't have, he was complaining about this and that and the other thing on the radio, and his crew chief said, you quit making mistakes and we won't have as big an issue. And he ended up coming back to a 4th place finish, which I thought was pretty incredible for everything that he went through.
Yeah, I know they said at one point he was running laps 3 seconds faster than some of the guys up front when he was trying to come back up through traffic.
Yeah, he was certainly fast.
I think that's probably why he spun out and hit a couple other trucks at one point too. He was pretty aggressive. So
yeah, certainly.
Definitely by the end, Corey Heim had the fastest truck out there.
Yeah.
So
it was Heim time. You're going to hear that all weekend from that race for him because he just absolutely dominated. He had it wrapped up for sure. Probably one of the more mature drivers in the truck series, I would say, is Corey. I think that, I mean, I don't like him per se as a fan, but I think that just a respect for a driver. He's got mine. And we already talked about Jack Hawksworth finishing 6th in his first truck start and running near the front. And that's pretty much all I got on the truck race. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot else to talk about, I didn't think.
Yeah, I pretty much mainly had it on in the background, so it was...
there wasn't nothing really attention-grabbing in the truck race, nothing really attention-grabbing in the Cup race, and just kind of the finish of the Xfinity race was the only thing that was really worth talking about at all this weekend, in my opinion. So, didn't really have much else. I did not have a trivia question this week. I just was too depressed to even think of one because of what we ended up watching. Should have tuned into basketball this week, I guess.
Yeah, back to the Xfinity race. All the JRM cars Allgaier was complaining about his teammates and stuff. They were all beating against each other.
Yeah.
Anytime one thing good would happen and something bad would happen.
Yeah, it seemed like him and the one were kind of trading a little paint there, not real impressed with each other. I don't know if did he have issues with other guys as well?
I know the one, I don't know if you saw the damage on the one. That was from hitting Allgaier.
Oh, perfect.
So that was kind of the start of it. But it was kind of just funny listening to Allgaier on the radio. So, I hate the way my teammates are driving. I hate the way the other people are driving.
Yeah.
So
I don't blame him for that, for sure. Anything else you wanted to talk about from this weekend?
That's all I got.
That's all I got. I am looking forward to Richmond. Not really thrilled that it's at 7 o'clock on Easter night, but other than that, I wish that was a Saturday night race. I understand that you don't want to compete with basketball throughout the weekend, and especially in March. I'm really hoping that they are able to bring a soft tire compound like we saw at Bristol to Richmond and maybe see them last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the short track package is going to entail and how that's all going to play out. We can talk more about that later in the week if we decide we want to do that. But other than that, that's all we got from COTA. Really appreciate everybody that watched, listened, followed us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The Garage Area. And I hope that you'll stick around to continue to follow us.